Welcome back to the channel. We're back with our Final Fantasy Commander deck profile. Today with the Destined Warrior. For 1, a white, a blue, and a black, you get 3/3 with First Strike, Vigilance, and Menace. Cleric, Rogue, Warrior, and Wizard spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. And then at the beginning of combat on your turn, creatures you control get +1/+0 to end the turn, or +3/+0 if you have a full party. The way the full party works is that if you have one of each type, a cleric, rogue, warrior, and wizard, you're considered to have a full party. So that's exactly what we're trying to do with this deck, is get one of each of those creatures onto the battlefield. You can't have just a changeling and have that count as everything, because it has to be one of each type. There are certain cards in here that are definitely like worse than like normal versions of the card, but they work with the full party mechanic, so it is just flavorful to run those in this deck as well. Bunch of ways to benefit off that combat, benefit off ways for those creatures to deal combat damage to our opponent with that stat boost that we're getting. But overall, that's just a general overview of the deck. Let's get into it card by card. Starting us off, we have an Arcane Signet for a little bit of mana. We're in a 4-color deck. Helps us out a whole bunch. Bender's Waterskin, untap it during each untap step, add 1 mana of any color. It's a 3 mana rock, so normally not something you're looking to run, but we're in blue, so having a 1 blue up during each opponent's turn could put them on edge and wonder if we're going to have that counter spell for them. Felwar Stone, another way to get some mana, is a little bit reliant on what our opponent's playing, but, we're in 3 colors, we'll have at least one of the colors we need. Lightning Grease, to make sure our creatures can attack the turn they come down. This way we could get the maximum benefit off of the Destined Warrior's ability. Maskwood Nexus gives our creatures all creature types. This way everything's a cleric, rogue, warrior, and wizard. And that's creatures you control. The same is true for creatures you control and creatures you own that aren't on the battlefield. So anything we're trying to cast from our hand as well. You also pay 3 to get an extra shapeshifter changeling creature token. That allows us another member for our full party there as well. So, gives us that much closer to full party. Multiclass Baldric. Equip creature's lifelink if you control a cleric, death touch if you control a rogue, haste if you control a warrior, and flying if you control a wizard. If you control all 4, it gets all 4 of those abilities, and as long as you have a full party, prevent all damage that will be dealt to a equipped creature, making that much easier for our creatures to swing in, because they're basically unblockable. Soul Ring for some additional mana. Spliff of Boots, another way to make sure our creatures can attack the turn they come down. And Wayfarer's Bauble for some additional lands. For our creatures, we have Archivist of Agma. It's a cleric, so it only costs 1 white to cast. Flash, whenever an opponent searches the library, you gain 1 life and gets to draw a card. A little bit of draw power is super helpful for us. Archpriest of Iona, no cost reduction here, but its power is equal to the number of creatures in your party, so it could be potentially a 4/2 for only 1 white mana. I'm sorry, that was my alarm. And then at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have a full party, target creatures +1/+1 and gains flying, making that much easier for your creatures to swing in. Burkos Party Leader, 2/4. Burkos is one of each type for the party, and whenever he attacks, the defending player loses X life, and you create X treasure tokens, where X is the number of creatures in your party. You mean, even if it's just 1, that's not, like, bad at all. Because, like, you're gonna be swinging with a 2/4. Like, it's not that easy to block, but it's not hard to block either. Changeling Outcast, Changeling, so it's every creature type, also unblockable. This way, if it gets to +3/+0, that's a little bit more damage to our opponent's face. Dark Confidant, it's a wizard, helps us with a little bit of draw power while we're at it. We take a little bit of damage, but still, normally tends to be worth it. Giant Magistrate, I've been trying to steer more away from, like, game changers in these deck profiles, but this one's a wizard, so it fits what we're trying to do. It also stops our opponent from, like, playing their commander and getting in the way of our attacks. Ghostly Pilferer, it's a rogue. You can make it unblockable by discarding a card, and whenever an opponent casts a spell from anywhere other than their hand, you get to draw a card. And you also get a little bit of draw power if you pay 2 during your untap step. Not going to really do that too often, but still, having an unblockable 2/1, that becomes a 5/1. Could be helpful for us. Giver of Runes, another cleric, good source of protection for our creatures, basically giving them a hexproof from a color of our choice. Grim Hireling, whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create 2 treasure tokens. It's a rogue. We're going to be trying to deal combat damage to our player a whole bunch. And then you can also sacrifice some treasure tokens for some removal there as well. Harper Recruiter, a warrior for our full party. Whenever Harvard Recruiter attacks, look at the top 4 cards of your library, may reveal a member of the party, and put it onto your hands. Which, we like to see. A little bit of draw power goes a long way. Linvala, Shield of Seagate. Beginning of combat on your turn, if you have a full party, choose target non-land permanent opponent controls. Until your next turn, it can't attack or block, and its activated abilities can't be activated. Basically, they have unable to scream on that creature for a turn. Also, you can sacrifice this creature, choose hexproof or indestructible. Creatures you control gain the ability to end a turn, which could be helpful for us. Also a wizard, so it's only Azorius to cast that. Loto, Corrupt Sheriff. Whenever a player casts their second spell each turn, you lose a life, get a treasure token, a little bit of ramp, and it's a rogue. Midnight Pathlighter. Creatures you control can't be blocked by legendary creatures. So if we're stopping our opponent from casting their commander, that could be their only legendary creature. Probably not, but it could be. Especially if we're playing in Final Fantasy. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal common damage to a player, venture into a dungeon. It's a wizard. Gets us a little bit of ramp when we venture into the dungeon between. And also, I think the skeleton that creates from the venture into the dungeon is a warrior on top of that. I might be thinking of taking the initiative, though. Mindblade Render. Whenever your opponents are dealt combat damage, if any of them is dealt damage by a warrior, you draw a card and lose a life. We have a few warriors, especially if we're making everything to a warrior with a Magical Nexus. That could be a little bit of draw power we need. Mother of Runes, another cleric. This way gives protection to our creatures. Nalia de Arms. Look at the top card of your library. Cast a member of the party from the top of your library anytime you want. And then, at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have a full party, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, and those creatures gain Death Touch, making your opponent not want to block them. Nimble Trap Finder, another rogue. That could be unblockable, getting the most out of that +3/+0. And also a little bit of draw power, too. Notion Thief, another rogue to add to our party. Also taking away our opponent's draw power. Opposition Agent, another rogue, taking away our opponent's search power from their deck. And also we get the draw and search power, respectively. Seasoned Dungeoneer, another warrior. You get to take the initiative. Whenever you attack with a member of the party, they gain protection, and they also get to explore, so potentially some counters on those creatures, dealing a little bit more damage. I mean, if not, still, the +3/+0, it's that much more damage. Selfless Spirit, way to give our creatures indestructible. We like to make sure our creatures stay on the board, so we keep our full party. It's also a cleric. Solemn Doom Guide, a creature in your graveyard that's a cleric. It's a member of the party, has unearthed 1 in a black. Return this card from the battlefield, it gains haste. It doesn't count as being cast, it counts as activating an ability. So you don't get to get a cost reduction, but still, it's super helpful. Also, this one's a cleric. Squad Commander, another warrior, that gets you another warrior. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have a full party, your creatures get +1/+0 and gain indestructible, making that much easier to swing in with them. Destined Black Mage, a way to give all of your creatures Death Touch. This way your opponent's not going to want to block them. And also, whenever we cast a non-creature spell, a little bit of damage to our opponent, or a lot of damage if we have that full party, making the most out of a full party mechanic. Destined Thief, a way to make our creatures unblockable, really helpful there. Also, a little bit of draw power while we're at it, potentially drawing 3 cards, discarding 1. Destined White Mage, not really making too much use out of gaining life, but potentially having those 3 +1/+1 counters anytime our creatures gain us life, which if we give them lifelink, they'll be doing. Unsettled Mariner, Changeling, whenever you or a permanent you control becomes a target with spell or ability, opponent controls counterspell unless it pays 1. Basically, us and our creatures ward 1. Also a shapeshifter, so it's a Changeling. It's any type of a member of the parties. And White Plume Adventurer, another way to get the initiative and give all of our creatures pseudo vigilance. And then let's scroll on over here to the second half of the deck. Bitter Blossom gives us a rogue token, that much closer to our full party. Black Market Connections gives us a shapeshifter token, that's any member of the party. Also, the ramp and the draw power is nice as well. Journey to Oblivion costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party, so you can potentially go for just 1 mana. And whenever Journey to Oblivion enters battlefield, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until it leaves the battlefield. So, in theory, you could run Banishing Light, but you have Journey into Oblivion. It works as a full party mechanic. Reconnaissance, move target attacking creature you control from combat and untap it. This way, we're just like, you're not going to block my creatures, and they decide to block it, you can just move it from combat. Reconnaissance mission, whenever creatures steal competence to a player, you get to draw a card, which we're trying to do. Then for our instance, we have a Chroma's Will. Give all of our creatures enough buffs there in order to hopefully win the game. Offer you can't refuse or counterspell. Concerted Defense, counter spell unless your opponent plays one for each member of your party. Counterspell for a counterspell. Deadly Alliance, target spell costs one less for each member of the party. Destroy target creature. So, like, sure, you could run Infernal Grasp, but like this could potentially be less. Dovin's Veto for counterspell. Pet Exile for some removal. Practice Tactics. Choose target attacking or blocking creature. Deals damage to that creature equal to twice the number of creatures in your party. It's like potentially 8 damage. That could potentially be a removal spell for 1 mana. You know, like Pet Exile. Restoration Magic for some protection for our creatures. Also potentially a life gain. Spoils of Adventure. 1 less cast for each member of our party. Potentially just the Azorius. Gain 3 life. Draw 3 cards. We like to see it. Swords to Plowshares for some removal. And Void Rend for even more removal. Nothing really special here in terms of lands. Yeah, no, nothing. Send from Avernus. Way to get all of our party back from the graveyard. Austere Command for another board wipe. Coveted Prize. 1 less cast for each member of our party. Search your library for a card. Put into your hand. You play a spell with CMC 4 or less for free. Which, you know, it's quite a few things in our deck. Damn for some removal or board wipe, depending what you need at the time. Knight's Whisper for some more draw power. Notorious Strong gives you a whole bunch of rogues that much closer to your full party. And also, if you deal damage to a rogue, you get a extra turn. Reanimate to get get a creature back from our graveyard. Skyclave Plunder. You know, look at the top X cards of your library where X plus number of creatures in your party, so potentially up to 7. Put 3 of them into your hand, rest on the bottom. Stick together, each player chooses a party from among creatures they control, aka probably something only we're going to have, and then everyone sacrifices the rest. Supreme Verdict for another board wipe, and Dwart the Grave, 1 less cast, so it's only 2 black, to return any creature from our party back to the battlefield. Overall, full party mechanic could be fun. Is it like the best commander for full party? In terms of like the colors you get access to, yes. In terms of its ability, I think Nally the Arms is a little bit better, but it's still super fun. You get to run all the destined characters in the stack, which I just like that flavor. But if you guys have your own deck profile for this deck, leave it down there in the comment section. If you want to see more like this, make sure to like, comment, subscribe so you can stay tuned for more. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great day.